寝るのが一番だ. If you can't tell why that just sounded off, you're not alone. Pitch accent is often overlooked by Japanese learners. Today we'll take a closer look at pattern C words, like the one in this sentence. Stick around and you'll see what I mean. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to Monochrome Japanese, a peaceful space where you can focus on your Japanese study. I'm your host, Shiho. In today's video, we'll dive deeper into the pattern C pitch accent, introduced in the fundamentals video. I'll put a link in the description below, and I recommend watching it first if you haven't already. By now, you should have an idea of what pattern C means. Unlike the first two patterns, pattern C words in textbooks or dictionaries don't have a fixed number next to them. Instead, the number is neither 1 nor the same as the word's mora count. For example, a 3 mora word can only be marked as 2, while a 4 mora word could be 2 or 3. And for words with 5 moras or longer, theoretically, there are more possibilities. The basic idea is simple. The last high-pitched mora is neither the first nor the last. If you're not familiar with the concept of mora, I also recommend watching the fundamentals video first. Like other patterns, pattern C also has a formal Japanese name, which is Nakadaka ga ta, literally meaning middle high type. In plain terms, the last high pitch is in the middle, not at the start or the end. That's exactly what I just showed you. 4 or 5 mora words can also be like this. And 5 mora words can also be like this. Now you got the idea for longer words, right? Well, for 1 or 2 mora words, I don't think it's necessary to explain. Before we start, a quick note. Compared to other patterns, pattern C words and actual usage can be influenced by various factors, allowing multiple acceptable pitch accents. Throughout the series of standard Japanese pitch accent on this channel, the reference pitch accent I list mostly comes from the first accent listed in the new NHK Japanese Pronunciation Accent Dictionary, the pitch accent recommended to memorize, even for native speakers, as mentioned by the editors. Alright, let's start with nouns. We're also going to observe them by origin, native Japanese words, Sino-Japanese words, and loanwords. But since 4 mora or longer pattern C nouns can possibly have more than one pitch accent, we'll first categorize by mora count and then by origin. First up, 3 mora words. Let's be clear. As pattern C words, there are always this pitch accent. For native Japanese words, common 3 mora pattern C nouns generally fall into 5 categories. First, words that become pattern C after adding the o or go prefix, like お昼、お化け、お寿司、おやつ. Second, derived words from must stem of verbs, like 揃い、構え、願い、匂い、思い、答え. Third, numeral related words, like 一人、一つ、五つ、 7つ. Fourth, words considered as simplex nouns, like めまい、うちわ、いとこ、境、向こう、斜め、くしゃみ、おもちゃ. And finally, compound nouns, like 子猫、中身、月日、雨戸、垣根、花屋. For Sino-Japanese words that are 3 mora, 3 kanji, pattern C nouns are actually rare. One common example that I believe we're all quite familiar with would be the word office in Japanese, which is 事務所. So let's spend more time on words that are 3 mora, 2 kanji, pattern C nouns, because there are a lot. If we categorize them by 1 mora plus 2 mora versus 2 mora plus 1 mora, some interesting tendencies might appear. For 1 plus 2, we have 不幸、不謹、女王、下品、奇数、機械、故障、地方、自由、化粧、試験、砂糖. For 2 plus 1, except words like 昨夜、質疑、福祉, most of them are numeral-related words, like 1時、6時、7時、8時、2回、5回、一部、一位. Loanwords are much simpler. Common examples of which include フリー、スキー、ドライ、ブルー、グレー、ツイン、スター、シチュー. You may have noticed similarities in rhythm compared to one of the categories of Sino-Japanese words that I just showed you. Feel free to share your observations in the comments. Next, 4 more words. Notice that the actual pitch accent could be either this or this. As from 4 moras onward, the last high pitch isn't fixed, so I'll mark the actual pitch accent in numbers for all upcoming examples. For native Japanese nouns, compared to 3 mora ones, we have less simplex 4 mora pattern C nouns, like 湖、紫、勢い、イノシシ. And the rest can be further grouped as follows. Reduplicated forms, like 様々、方々、人々、次々、おのおの. Time and numeral related words, like あさって、おととい、おととし、9つ、一言、一月. Derived words from must stems of verbs or phrasal verbs, like 楽しみ、間違い、早起き、長生き、居眠り. Nouns modified by must stems of verbs, like 食べ物、飲み物、生き物、鳴き声、折り紙. And finally, kunyomi compound nouns, like 足元、矢印、ふるさと、中指、手袋, If you can think of other examples, leave a comment below. Sino-Japanese words that are 4 mora 3 kanji pattern C nouns are more common than 3 mora 3 kanji pattern C nouns. And just like the word 事務所, most of them are obvious compound nouns. Some common ones are 教科書、自動車、飛行機、図書館、看護師、犠牲者、果実酒、思春期、刑務所、大都市、不可能、座布団。If it's 4 mora 2 kanji pattern C nouns, there are a ton of examples out there, which generally have a 2 mora per kanji form. With the second mora being the last high-pitched mora, we have words like 失礼、血液、国内、職業、植物、圧力、学問、作物。With the third mora being the last high-pitched mora, we have 案内、番号、欠点、現金、材料、工場、正直、冗談、点数、納豆、両方、相性。Again, if you can think of other examples, leave a comment below. 4 mora pattern C loanwords are also quite straightforward, as the last high pitch usually falls on the second mora, with only a few exceptions on the third. Some common examples are レポート、レシート、ドライブ、デザート、デザイン、スペース、スピーチ、ストロー、ストレス、イメージ、クリック、アラーム。And a few exceptions would be コーヒー、シャンパン、ハンカチ。If you know other examples, I also encourage you to leave a comment below. That's all for 4 mora nouns. Before we proceed, let's review 3 and 4 mora nouns for a bit. As loanwords are more consistent in pitch accent, we're going to ignore them for now. I think it's somewhat obvious that both native and Sino-Japanese nouns show a stronger tendency to be compounds as the mora count increases. Now, this has nothing to do with pitch accent anymore. But the reason why I chose to bring this up in today's video is because, first, in pattern C compound nouns, the last high pitch usually falls on the last mora of the former element or the first mora of the latter element, helping to predict the pitch accent. Second, for words that have 5 moras and longer, almost all the nouns are pattern C compounds, especially for 7 mora nouns, based on the data that I have. As you would imagine, more moras naturally means more compounds, and the pitch tends to balance across elements for clarity. We're going to have a dedicated video for the pitch accent of compound nouns in the future. Stay tuned. Before moving to verbs, this is a good timing to revisit the opening sentence. If you recall, I read it as 寝るのが一番だ. Now you might be able to tell what just went off. The word best here in this sentence is a pattern C noun. So it should sound like 寝るのが一番だ instead of 寝るのが一番だ. However, there's an important but here. When used as adverbs, some pattern C and pattern D nouns will shift to pattern A. And the word 一番 happens to be one of the examples. Like in this sentence, how should it sound? Yes, it's 一番人気の料理は何ですか? Other examples include 昨日. As an adverb, it becomes 昨日. 昨日見た映画はどう? たくさん. As an adverb, it becomes たくさん. たくさん食べたよ. 半分. As an adverb, it becomes 半分. 半分もらった. If you have other examples, let us know in the comments. Alright, that's all for nouns. Next, verbs. When it comes to pattern C pitch accent, group 3 verbs is a little different. So we're going to revisit it later. For the first 2 groups, most 3 moras or longer verbs are actually pattern C ones. Just like nouns, the more moras a verb has, the more likely it's a compound verb. For instance, pattern A verbs forming compounds as the latter element often shift to pattern C. Common examples include 違える becomes 間違える. 始める becomes 言い始める. 続ける becomes 思い続ける. 浮かべる becomes 思い浮かべる. Well, as you know, there are always exceptions. In this case, the best one would be the word あげる, as it keeps its pattern A pitch accent in compound verbs like 取り上げる and 持ち上げる. However, the tendency of shifting to pattern C still exists. If you know other exceptions, you're welcome to put them in the comments. Compared to pattern C nouns, the last high pitch of pattern C verbs is much easier to predict, as it's most likely on the penultimate mora. I'll list common 3, 4, and 5 mora verbs for your reference. To save our time, I'm not going to read them, but please check your pitch accent against the numbers provided. First, 3 moras. And 4 moras. And 5 moras. As most of the 5 mora or longer verbs are compounds, the group 1 verbs listed on this slide are almost all the common simplex ones out there. As you would imagine, there are exceptions. There are also cases where you have the last high pitch on the antepenultimate mora, as in 覆る よみがえる 繰り返す 生き返る etc., which has to do with their etymologies or compositions. I'm going to save this for you to explore and encourage you to share your findings in the comments. You might have noticed that in today's video, we haven't seen many example sentences so far, which might make it a little dry to some of you. Of course, I have my own considerations about this, but if you're still sticking around, congratulations! As I'm going to introduce one of the most important pitch accent rules for verbs, as it's about pattern C group 2 verbs. So there's no better timing for this. Are you ready? First, what is it? If a verb meets the following criteria: it's a group 2 verb, it's a pattern C verb, and the last high-pitched mora falls on its penultimate mora, like this, then the last high-pitched mora of its te form and ta form moves one mora left. In other words, it becomes the antepenultimate mora. Let's take a look at an example. I actually showed you this sentence earlier. Do you still remember how I read it? It was たくさん食べたよ, not たくさん食べたよ. Yes, the ta form of the verb 食べる is 食べた. Notice that this is a key distinction between pattern C and other pitch accent patterns for group 2 verbs. Of course, te form works the same way. 食べる becomes 食べて, as in どんどん食べてください. Now, I'll give you the common 3 and 4 mora pattern C group 2 verbs that I showed you earlier. Of course, they also have their last high-pitched moras on the penultimate mora. If you're not familiar with this pitch accent rule, I strongly recommend stopping the video and practicing their te and ta form. If you can come up with some sentences, doesn't have to be long, or you can find some example sentences to practice, that would be superb. Just like this. 疲れる 疲れてもう疲れてしまったんだよ疲れる疲れたもう疲れたんだよ Okay, you can't overemphasize this. This is an extremely important rule when it comes to pitch accent variations of verbs. So please practice it. And finally, let's also take a look at group 3 verbs. We know that group 3 includes the irregular verb kuru and all the suru verbs. Kuru is a pattern B verb, and suru itself is a pattern A verb. But when it comes to pattern C pitch accent, the suru verbs are worth attention. As a whole, the pitch accent is determined by the preceding elements. Specifically, if the preceding element has a pattern C or D pitch accent, the whole word is a pattern C verb. As the pitch either already dropped before suru or drops from suru. Some common examples are 失礼失礼するチャレンジチャレンジするびっくりびっくりする怪我怪我する For suru verbs, there's another situation that calls for attention, where the preceding element is a 2 mora onyomi kanji, with the second mora being either a vowel or the nasal sound. As in this situation, the last high-pitched mora usually falls on s, which makes the whole verb a pattern C word. Common examples include 愛する、関する、対する、反する、称する、面する、要する、有する。Alright, it's not possible to ignore the pitch accent of their te form and ta form. As a shift to pattern B, as the te form of these verbs are a lot more common than the ta form, let's take a look at the te form of these four verbs that are even more often used. 愛する becomes 愛して。関する becomes 関して。対する becomes 対して。and 反する becomes 反して。Now you should know how to say this well-known sentence correctly in Japanese. However, these ones might be more practically meaningful. それに関しては後ほど説明します。この提案に対して強い反対意見が出ました。Alright, that's all for verbs. Finally, adjectives. E-adjectives are going to be very straightforward, as except the ones that are already introduced in previous episodes of pattern A or pattern B pitch accent, everything is pattern C. And yes, there's no pattern D E-adjectives in Japanese. Since we're all very familiar with E-adjectives, I don't think it's necessary to even talk about it for now. Let's move on to not adjectives. Guess what? They are not complicated at all, as it seems like we've already seen most of them. Typical native Japanese not adjectives in pattern C pitch accent include 明らか、賑やか、鮮やか、穏やか、爽やか、華やか、健やか、そっくり。Some Sino-Japanese ones are 得意、自由、残念、失礼、正直、十分、極端、贅沢。There are not many common loanwords in this category though. スマート、ユニーク、プライベート。Alright, let's also review today's content with a short quiz. Your job remains the same: to spot which sentence I mispronounced. I'll leave some time after every 3 sentences on the screen, so you can pause or replay. Are you ready? Nouns. 歌を歌うのが苦手なので、最近は一人でカラオケに行ったりもし始めた。紅茶に砂糖を2杯入れたらちょうどいい甘さになった。急なお願いで休日にレポートを書かされたけど仕方なかった。Right. The word 一人 is a pattern C noun. So it's 一人 not 一人。最近は一人でカラオケに行ったりもし始めた。Next, verbs. 一日中話していたから喉がすごく渇いたんだ。苦しみを乗り越えた話を聞いて心が打たれている人が多かった。ルールに反して行動すると罰を受けることになる。As 乗り越える is a group 2 verb and a pattern C verb, with this last high pitch on its penultimate mora. The last high pitch shifts one mora left for its te form and ta form. So it becomes 乗り越えた, not 乗り越えた or 乗り越えた。苦しみを乗り越えた話を聞いて心が打たれている人が多かった。And finally, adjectives. この方法は従来よりも明らかに効率的だ。友達が引っ越してしまうと聞いて少し残念な気持ちになった。仕事の話ばかりではなく、たまにはプライベートな話もしてみたい。Yes, the word we all know is not a pattern A not adjective. So it's not 残念, but 残念 in pattern C. 残念な気持ちになった。Did you spot them all? Alright, that's all for today's video. I hope you found it useful. Oh yeah, there's one more thing. As today's content has been quite energy demanding, I decided to just share an interesting tidbit at the end, which is about the kanjis for the word coffee in Japanese. Wait, you might be like, are there kanjis for coffee? This is a normal reaction. Although very rarely used nowadays, the word coffee in Japanese can be written in 2 kanjis like this. Of course, you can also get it from the katakana input. However, these 2 kanjis actually have interesting origins. First, let's take a look at this seemingly irrelevant word, kamikazari. And it also has its own kanjis, which shows the meaning of the word, hair ornament. Now, if I ask you to type kamikazari on your phone or computer, from the candidate list, can you realize why I'm mentioning this word now? Yes, there's actually this borrowed kanji, also known as ateji, for kamikazari. And it also means the same thing. Then how about the second one? It's tsuranuku. Yes, it's the tsuranuku you might already know. There's this ateji for tsuranuku as well. And it also has a similar meaning. So the kanji word for coffee in Japanese actually means 髪飾りを貫く. But why? This is such an interesting thing to find out. So I decided to leave it for you guys. Let me know your findings in the comments. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, you're more than welcome to subscribe to my channel and share my videos with anyone you know who's learning Japanese. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.